Welcome to Stoked, the podcast that helps adventure elopement photographers hit six figures and beyond in their businesses without hustling on social media. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become an elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on helping you do the same. Are you ready to start booking out your calendar with dream couples in breathtaking locations and feeling genuinely stoked about your elopement photography business, life, and bank account? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail, and this week we have a special guest. I have Corey, who is an elopement photographer based on the East Coast in Connecticut, and we have a lot of fun stuff that we're going to talk about today. Corey, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Megan, it's so good to be here.
So, Corey, you have an interesting story on how you left corporate America and became an elopement photographer. Can you share that with us?
For sure. So I worked corporate for over 20 years.
Wow.
It was based out of necessity. You know, we all have to work and put a roof over our head and pay the bills. And I always loved photography. But before I got into photography, I fell in love with massage therapy because when I was in my 20s, I got a professional massage. It changed my world. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to do this and do something that makes a difference in the world. So I had my own practice for 15 years.
Wow.
And while I did that, I was always had a camera in my hand, you know, always traveling, had the point and shoot. So yeah, traveling, nature, horses, things like that, modeling, fashion, those are all interests of mine. So I basically transitioned into weddings while I had my massage therapy practice. So I had, again, two jobs at the same time for survival until I could build up my business as a wedding photographer. And I quickly found out that that was not my game plan. I was like, nope, churches just don't resonate with me. Nature is my church. So
Oh, I love how you say that.
yeah. Yeah, nature is my church. Yeah, I had gone to a conference, my first photographer workshop in 2017 in the Azores.
Oh,
And that
cool.
was literally like an oyster and it opened my world. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Destination weddings, elopements. So ever since 2017, I was trying to branch off into the elopement world. So thanks to your course and several other educational courses that really helped me figure out all the things out that I needed to run a business.
Yeah,
Taking photos is one thing, but the business aspect is a whole nother animal.
it really is. And I think if you can learn to love it, you'll do great as a photographer, you know? It's not everybody loves the business stuff, but you can learn to love it. So you have done so much different stuff, which is so cool. Like you quit your corporate job, which is crazy. You quit your massage therapy practice that you owned. Like, how did you accomplish all of these things? Like, how did you do that? How do you have the courage to do it?
Well, the courage. Okay, so courage is a lot. I'm a huge believer of following your dreams. I'm a very passionate person. I am multifaceted, multi-passionate. So I've always wanted to do things that make a difference in the world. I believe photography is a healing art as well as the massage therapy. It makes people feel good and empowered. It gave me the freedom to be creative, and I've always been a creative person. And I don't like to be boxed in the corporate world. So
Yeah.
I did whatever it took to get out of that situation. So if that meant going to school at night, working two jobs, working 24/7, 7 days a week, I did it. I've always believed in hard work. That's the way I was brought up. And thankfully, I have such a really great schedule now where I have work-life balance, which is really important to me as well.
Yeah.
But in the early years, I just really had to hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was younger then too, so when you're in your 20s and 30s or even 40s, you have a lot more energy.
Yeah.
So that always makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. As a 40-year-old, I know you think I'm young, but I feel
You
like
are.
my energy is starting to
Oh, it does.
drain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every 5 years, I'm like, you first feel it at 25, then 30, 35,
Yeah.
40, 45, and then keep going and you'll
Yeah.
see. That's why my grandmother always said, "Keep moving, never stop moving, because that is the key to staying young."
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that for sure. So, and
Yeah.
elopement photography, I feel like it keeps us young because it does keep us moving and it makes us go location scout and travel
Oh,
and see new places and all that kind of stuff. So, you're based in Connecticut, but where are you shooting most of your elopements? Because I know people are going to wonder that because they think they got to live in Colorado or Utah to shoot elopements, but that's just not true.
yeah, so believe it or not, my prime market is Acadia National Park in Maine.
Mhm.
Maine happens to be, I call it my second home. My family all moved up there a long
Mhm.
time ago, and I visit them as often as possible. So when I book Acadia elopements, I book my travel so that I can see my family in between
Perfect.
because my folks are older and I don't get to see them as often as I would like.
Mhm.
So yeah, Acadia, I'm number one thanks to Google and doing all my blogs, number
Yeah.
one on SEO for Acadia elopement photographer. So lots of hard work went into that to make that place known. So
Mhm.
when my couples find me, they're like, "Oh my God, I saw you everywhere,
Yeah.
Instagram, Google, Pinterest." So
Mhm. That's what I
yeah,
call omnipresence.
there you
That's
go.
good when you can have couples say they've seen you everywhere, you know? So, that's awesome. But where else do you shoot? Because I know you got some exciting stuff that you're working on.
Yes, yes. So I love the outdoors, the mountains. I love the intoxicating scent of like pines. So, whenever I can get to Maine, we just got back from Grand Teton National Park. That
Mhm.
was a true manifestation dream come true. And
I
thank
love
you
that.
to your course, the Google Ads course and, the mastermind. I learned so much. So, yeah, I've really been branching out into the places that I want to travel and be, even if it's for like a week or two.
Mhm.
Last year, I went to the Dolomites. I'm getting inquiries for the Dolomites. Again, more majestic
Yay.
mountains.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I wanna go to the Dolomites next year so bad, that's, like, on my list.
Yes. Yeah. And places that are more local to New England. So I do work in the Catskills, a
Mhm.
little bit in the Adirondacks. I've also done some work in Block Island, Rhode Island, which is beautiful. That's
Mhm.
really different and unusual. A little bit in Connecticut,
Mhm.
and of course the White Mountains in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So
They're
yeah,
all
I'm
over.
I'm within like a 6-hour radius of
Mhm.
Connecticut. And
I
then
love that.
everything else I get on an airplane. But again, mindful travel, plan it
Mhm.
so that way I can group everything together. So I'm not
Yeah,
bebopping all over the place and wasting time, money, and energy. So,
totally. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that, and I think that that whole travel that's one of the things that can be challenging for elopement photographers to figure out, like, how do they travel the best? How can they group things together to give them the most bang for their buck for the travel, especially if they have to fly on an airplane? That's when things really rack up compared to
Mm.
just driving, even if it's a 6-hour drive, like, when you have to fly and rent a car and stay in a bunch of hotels and stuff, it definitely adds up. But let's rewind a little bit because you said you manifested Grand Tetons. And I love the woo woo stuff as much as I love the data, numbers, and strategy. So,
Yeah.
can we expand on how you manifested your Grand Tetons elopement?
Okay. So back in 2021, my husband and I rented a camper van in Vegas. We had a big road trip planned from Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone to Rocky Mountain National Park in Boulder. And then we flew home from Denver. So we did like a 2-week road trip. So
Mm,
hiking, biking, And when we went to Grand Teton National Park, we both fell in love and we're like, we need to move here.
Yeah. It's
But
so cool.
billionaire's paradise,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's not in my budget to move to Wyoming, but gosh, if
Mhm.
I can go and stay there for a couple weeks during the summer, that would be perfect. So
Mhm.
that's really what we've been working on. So George, my husband, who's also my amazing officiant during the summer months and
Mhm.
my assistant, he also helps with the Super 8 sometimes.
Love that.
I try to arrange our travel schedule around his school schedule so
Mhm.
he can be a part of the elopement package and the experience because the couples really love it when we work
Mhm.
together. And he has
Yeah.
such a great energetic experience. So,
And
yeah.
he's a teacher, that's why he has summers off, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's a public school teacher. So, manifestation has always been important to me. I believe in the law of attraction. If you've ever watched the movie The Secret, really old, or I Heart Huckabees, a really old movie,
I
it's
remember when that book came out, The Secret, it was like this big deal. It was on Oprah Winfrey and stuff, like
yeah. 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 So law of attraction, Abraham Hicks, and Kundalini yoga and meditation. Like I've done new moon meditations. I write my intentions for the year on New Year's Day. Like I really have like a clear vision and like mood boards on Pinterest. Like what kind
Mhm.
of life do I want to create? And again, it's a creative outlet. So if I can sit down at the beginning of the year and like really paint a picture of what I want my future to look like, not just for myself, but for us as a relationship, my husband and I, and the business and things like that. It makes like such a huge difference. And I've seen so much growth just this year. It's been amazing.
I love that so much. So for the folks listening who maybe aren't familiar with manifestation and how setting intentions and stuff like that works, why do you think that that kind of stuff does work? Like, why would you recommend if somebody's not doing that, that they should, especially as a small business owner and an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So with all the Kundalini yoga that I've taken, it's like I try to wake up in the morning while it's still dark out and just start my day that way. And it's like guided meditation and breath work. And it really gets your energy flowing in your body.
Hmm.
We have a life force in our body. Like, when you walk into a room, you can feel somebody's presence, whether
Hmm.
it's uplifting or whether it's kind of dark and gloomy or, depressing. You
Hmm.
can feel people's energy. And I'm a very feeling, intuitive person. So basically, where our mind goes, our energy flows.
Hmm.
So if you're thinking positive thoughts like, hey, what if it's a gloomy day, but on the inside you still have a sunny outlook on things? I
Hmm.
think it can affect your mood throughout the day. So, and for me, I'm solar powered. So on gloomy days here in New England, it gets really hard during the winter
Hmm.
months. So
Yeah.
I really need to move my body because that moves the stagnant energy within our body. It lets go of stress,
Hmm.
and then you have clear mind, clear ideas. Actually, more ideas come to me when I get my exercise, like when I ride my bike or
That's
when I
so
go on a
true.
hike.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's when I get light bulb moments is when I'm active. It's like
Yeah,
all of a sudden everything makes sense again.
yeah, yeah. So when you're writing the list of things that you would like to manifest in your life, like get really specific, not just, I want to make a lot of money. Make it really clear. I would like to make $200,000 so that I can, start saving up for that second house out west.
Mhm.
I need a new vehicle or I want to donate money to this animal shelter that I really care about.
Mhm.
So money is energy, and when it comes in, it goes out. So
Mhm.
if you just think about it like it's an exchange of energy, it's never going to be permanent. And so we can't get stuck to things being permanent. It will never
Yeah.
stay with us. So, like
Mhm.
anything, you know?
Yeah, it flows and it's renewable and it's infinite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love all those kinds of thoughts about money. When I started thinking about money as energy, it
Mhm.
really changed my life too, because I'd leave big tips,
Yeah,
donate to causes. Like, yeah,
yeah,
it's not something that I need to like hoard.
yeah,
It's like I give it out freely because I want my energy to flow to others.
yeah.
And I also feel like then energy flows back to me more easily.
Exactly,
And yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's like a boomerang without thinking about, "Oh, I'm gonna give because I'm gonna get." Just give without expecting, right?
Mhm.
Whether that's being kind to somebody at the grocery store or you want to make a financial donation to somebody, like, we need more human interactions, positive
Mhm.
interactions,
Yeah.
people on the planet so that we can all stay human because AI and screen time, like that human connection with people when you're out in public and you're meeting a stranger, it's so important just to be a nice person, you know?
Yeah, I feel like so many people aren't and are just
Yes.
angry and annoyed and
Oh,
like, yeah,
yeah.
I feel like ever since I've kind of changed my mindsets about money and about life, I feel like I go out into the world and I just smile and I'm happy and everyone else is grumpy and
I know.
I'm like, what I mean, if your life sucks that bad, like why don't you
Yeah.
change it?
Yeah. I have to say, when I've had hard times and when I get on a downer or whatever, I just think of all the things that I'm grateful for.
Mhm.
And one of the practices that I've done is on the full moon, you write 100 things that you're grateful for every full moon. And it's like,
Ooh.
I'm not religious, but like coming to Jesus moment. It's like
Mhm.
there are so many things that we can be grateful for, and it just really simplifies life. And then you don't become such a externally focused person. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because we have so much, like our country, our towns, our we have a roof over our head, a vehicle, food in our bellies,
Mhm.
like the basic necessities. So, yeah, all those things I know make a huge difference in my life about
Yeah.
being humble
Mhm.
and grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I really do feel like when you do have gratitude for the position that you're in and you're not just upset with it, then it's easier to take action to continue to build what you have because you're not seeing the world as this negative place. You're seeing it as this place full of opportunity and you can achieve anything you want because look at how much you've already achieved and how much you've already created for yourself. And I think that's really what manifestation is for me is getting very clear on what you want in your life so that you take a very active role in creating it instead of what I think a lot of people do, which is just take a back seat and they're just very passive and they just let whatever happens happen and it's never really what they want because they're meant for something better, but they're not going
Yeah.
after that better thing. They're just
Yeah.
settling. And that's really a big difference. Like, I want everybody to take a very active role in creating their life.
Mhm.
And it takes courage to do that. It takes some trial and error.
And
And
it's,
it's a journey.
it takes investment and
Hmm.
action, like,
Yeah.
honestly, it's habits, those Atomic Habits by James
Hmm.
Clear. It's changing, one, the way we think, the way we do things, and then putting the action into it. But taking your mastermind course really gave me all of the essential tools that I didn't know I was missing. I knew I
Hmm.
was missing something, but there were, like, so many pleasant surprises in the course that I was like, "Wow, this is so cool," like the spreadsheets and
Hmm.
the spreadsheet that Todd came up with too, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this financial thing, this is super cool," because
Yeah.
I've been trying to better my financial tracking and just in the metrics and all of that
Hmm.
jazz. It's so great, and then
Oh, thanks.
yeah. Yeah, so you do need to put the action behind the intention.
Yeah.
So intention's one thing, that's like planting the seed in your garden.
Hmm.
Then you gotta water the garden, that's the action, and
Hmm.
then you gotta pull the weeds, the things that aren't working, and then you get to see your garden bloom. But it
Yeah.
takes time, it does not happen overnight, you have to be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that too. I feel like we've just shared so much good advice with people. And,
Oh, thank
yeah, and I love the garden analogy because I do think, especially creative small businesses like elopement photography, like it's very much like nurturing a garden and seeing it bloom and creating this beautiful thing, but it's also a little wild.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not like this perfect thing. It's not like,
Yeah. It's not an English garden, it's a wild
yeah,
garden.
yeah, yeah.
It's not perfectly manicured, it's wild.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely a little wild, and I think sometimes people do want it to be like this perfect thing, and it's just not that, and you don't really know what you're creating all the time, but it's really amazing. So,
Yep.
cool. What's been your favorite elopement that you've ever photographed? Let's get some inspiration for the people
Well,
listening.
so, the Dolomites to me are just phenomenal, like endless creativity and inspiration in the mountains. There's
Mhm.
like it is absolutely wild there. But again, it's like we have the Dolomites right here in the United States, and that's
Mm.
Grand Teton National Park,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I just did a really cool elopement experience, a sunrise and sunset adventure with a couple who wanted to incorporate their dogs. In
Oh.
Grand Teton National Park, you can't have dogs, so I was
Mhm.
able to find them places where they could take their dogs.
Yeah.
And then we went on our own adventure in the park without the dogs. We left them back at their dog-friendly geodesic dome place. That was so cool.
That's
So,
so cool. I love
mhm.
that. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Corey, for being on the podcast and sharing your
Yeah.
story and sharing your experience with manifestation and booking your dream destinations and leaving corporate. I hope everybody listening has been inspired. And where can they find you on Instagram?
On Instagram, it's Elope with Corey. Also on Pinterest, I'm Elope with Corey. And on my website, Corey Lynn Tucker Photography. And also Facebook.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And we will see you next week, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of Stoked. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring elopement photography content, check us out on Instagram at Megan McPhail. And if you'd like to hear more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you hit six figures as an elopement photographer, then check out my website at www.meganmcphail.com.